the best way to get superior returns, 100x type returns, if you're an individual, would be you adopt, you keep your day job, and so you maximize the cash flow you generate via whatever your profession is. You're responsible on your expenditures. You have to think in the year 2045, I think a Bitcoin's worth $13 million. So every Bitcoin that you don't buy is a $13 million cost. That Ferrari that you're going to buy is going to cost you like 6 Bitcoin. And so it's going to be $100 million Ferrari, right? If you look out 20 years. So you have to keep your job, unless you're insanely rich, don't splurge on the Ferrari. Buy the 6 Bitcoin instead. And with regard to leverage, the intelligent leverage for the individual is generally long dated, mid dated mortgage debt. So if I have any kind of property, if I have a house, I would put a long mortgage on it, a 10-year mortgage or 15 to 20-year mortgage on it, especially a conforming loan, and then I would roll it into Bitcoin. Because mortgage debt is not mark to market. It's against an asset which is fairly stable. Normally the interest rates are somewhat subsidized by a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac program or a government program. So it's the cheapest form of permanent capital that someone can get. So, I give you what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't quit your job. You shouldn't splurge on sports cars you can't afford. Don't buy a yacht because it's obscenely expensive, and don't pay off your mortgages. Don't get debt free. Any capital you have that's not marked to market capital would be better invested in an asset that's going up 30% a year for the next 20 years.
Aaron from the Bitcoin Bros here. Welcome back to the channel. Going to be going over some recent MicroStrategy news, Bitcoin news. Going to be getting into it today. We have some upcoming dates this week we got to pay attention to, so going to be going over that as well in today's video. So make sure to stay tuned, like, subscribe. We have new content coming out every single day, and we have some pretty interesting interviews coming up very soon, so stay tuned for that. Let's go ahead and jump into it here today. We have Strategy up 3 spots. It's currently rated number 80 in the top market cap companies in the US. So the reason why we look at this is because as they continue to climb the ranks here, when they get included in the S&P 500, they'll get allocated based on their market cap ranking. And as they keep going up the ranks, they'll get more allocation from the S&P. So it's good to see Strategy continue to climbing the ranks here. It's also showing how big of a company that they're becoming as they're now in the top 100 in the entire United States, which is really good to see. And then looking at the most actively traded US stocks today, we have Strategy coming in on Friday at 7.14 billion, number 5 in the top traded market cap companies. We've seen this happen almost every single day. The only difference between all these companies, you have Tesla up here at $1 trillion, Nvidia at $3 trillion, Palantir at 300 billion, Apple at $3 trillion, some more trillion-dollar companies down here. The only difference here is that Strategy is only a $100 billion market cap company. And that's probably not going to last for long. Not financial advice, obviously. But looking forward into the future, Strategy will probably be worth a $1 trillion company right along all of these other stocks. And the volume right now is showing you what could be potentially coming. And it's not like this is just a fluke. It's happening one time a month or just every so often. This is every day Strategy has been in the top 10 in actively traded U.S. stocks there. So that's good to see. And then a pretty interesting chart here from Ki Young Ju. He's talking about how Bitcoin is becoming deflationary because of all the Saylor buying. Their first 555,000 Bitcoin, they're not going to be selling it. And their holdings alone mean a negative 2.23% annual deflation rate. So you can see here the total supply excluding MicroStrategy holdings. So you can see the daily issuance of Bitcoin here, but Strategy alone is canceling out all of that. And we're not actually even getting inflation with Bitcoin anymore when you account for Strategy. We're getting deflation yearly from just Strategy. This isn't including the ETFs, any other corporate buyers, any of these states buying Bitcoin, El Salvador, none of that. Retail buyers, it's just looking at Strategy. So you can see Bitcoin is actually really deflationary now. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about MNAV. There's been a lot of noise on Twitter over the past couple of days. A lot of people are very concerned about MNAV, Saylor tapping the ATM, not raising as much debt as Strategy said that they're going to be able to raise. And if you look at what people are concerned about, if you look back in November when Bitcoin was around 94,000, Strategy was trading at around 473. We had a NAV premium around 3.41x. And Strategy didn't have as much Bitcoin as it had back in November as it does now. And the NAV has fallen all the way to below 2, and we're trading at a lower price, and Bitcoin is at a higher price. So people are concerned around that. And in my personal opinion, what I believe is Strategy can try its best to control NAV, but there's just certain market conditions that is going to push that NAV premium up. If there's a lot of hype in the market like there was back in November, that NAV premium could potentially go to 5x. And Saylor is going to continue to tap that ATM because it gives them more Bitcoin. And people are just concerned that it's going to hold the price of Strategy shares down, which it probably is somewhat, but there's always that future expectation of where the company will be going in the future. So I personally believe that the NAV premium won't go below 1 unless we're in a Bitcoin bear market. If Bitcoin goes down, I think that's when we'll actually see Strategy potentially go below that. But that would be a great time to buy Strategy. So if it ever goes below 1, there's going to be a lot of people like me and a lot of people who really like Strategy, people in the space who are probably going to be buying Strategy shares, doing call options on the stock because the NAV has fallen so greatly. So I think that there's always going to be some speculation to keep that NAV premium up. And Saylor is not going to slow down the ATM buying because it's giving him more Bitcoin. And to talk a little bit about the debt here, just a quick chart that I put together, you can see this is current what they have. Their Bitcoin assets are around 57 billion. You have their debt currently around 8.2 billion with a Bitcoin price of around 103,000. Number of Bitcoin they have is around 555,000. And their leverage ratio is around 14%. So their debt versus what their Bitcoin assets are. So this is something to take in consideration because even if Bitcoin goes down to say $50,000, the Bitcoin assets are still going to be higher than the debt. But if Bitcoin goes down to 50,000 from here, the MNAV is probably going to shrink because there's going to be a lot of bearishness. People are going to be concerned. People will be calling for $30,000. I don't think that's going to happen. But also, if Bitcoin continues to go up, and let's say we get a $150,000 Bitcoin, we can see the leverage ratio goes below 10%. And you can see the difference here. Saylor and Strategy will probably be able to raise more convertible debt. And they actually wait until times of euphoria to raise convertible debt because it's easier to do it in times of euphoria. And also on the flip side, if we did go into a bear market and we were seeing interest rates being lowered into a bear market, that's normally what happens. Then you have Strife, which have the high APYs on them, comparing that to bonds, which will probably be, going down in terms of what the return is every single year. You could see money flowing out of that bond market and going into Strife potentially. And that could be a way that Strategy continues to accumulate Bitcoin even in a bear market. And then again, some Bitcoin news. We have the Missouri House passing bill to exempt Bitcoin from capital gains taxes. That's huge to see. We have the mayor of Vancouver in Canada. They want the city to buy Bitcoin before the price rockets soon. Bitcoin is moving at the speed of light. So we have some cities in Canada looking to put Bitcoin on a strategic reserve. That is pretty cool to see, and it's just very bullish for Bitcoin. And then another company, Japanese public company, beat by 6.8 million worth of Bitcoin with plans to buy 34.5 million more. So other companies in Japan are looking at Metaplanet, and they're like, they're the best performing stock over the past year, and they're not doing anything different. They're just buying Bitcoin. We got to do this. This is what we've been talking about. We're going to see more companies copying Strategy, copying Metaplanet, copying the blockchain group in Europe. So this is really good to see. Also here we have Congo. Their total Bitcoin holdings just crossed 3,000. So what's really interesting with the chart that we saw earlier, which included that 450 Bitcoin that gets released every single day, That's not even including the deflationary rate of what these miners aren't selling. A lot of these miners aren't selling their Bitcoin. So you can see Congo here has over 3,000 BTC, and you have BitDeer Official, another miner. They increased their Bitcoin HODL to 1,246. And then a date that we have to be watching out for here is going to be May 13th. That is going to be Tuesday. That's when we're going to see the CPI number. And one thing we could see here is really low inflation numbers, because the past 3 or 4 months have been bad in the traditional markets, along with Trueflation, which has been a leading indicator for CPI, has fallen off of a cliff. And if we see that trend continue with Trueflation being a leading indicator, we could see a really low CPI number. If we get a low CPI number, that's going to signal the Fed to lower interest rates, and that would be very bullish for Bitcoin, be good for the QQQ and every other risk asset, even though Bitcoin has correlated a little bit away from risk assets as of recently. And then this bull run is a little bit different than ones we've seen in the past. Despite Bitcoin being only 5% away from an all-time high, the Google interest is incredibly low. The average person hasn't even started paying attention. And I think one of the reasons why this is the way it is right now is because Bitcoin has really outperformed all the other altcoins. A lot of altcoins are still down huge from their all-time highs. A lot of altcoins like Ethereum, Cardano, like the top 10 altcoins, they still haven't even passed their 2021 highs. And Bitcoin has really taken the storm, it's taken the narrative. And all of this money flowing into Bitcoin, a lot of it is institutional money, not really retail driven anymore. So we may see retail start talking about Bitcoin once it hits maybe 120, 130, 140, 150. But every single time we see Bitcoin hit a new all-time high, the next time it hits that all-time high, people aren't really talking about it, the retail investors. That's what we've seen over the past about 7 years since we've been in the space. But that's all I had for today's video, guys. I have a clip that I want to share for you guys here at the end. I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. If you are going to be at the Bitcoin conference, make sure if you see us to say hi. We will be there checking out the conference. Really appreciate you sticking around all the way to the end of the video. Like and subscribe. We have new content coming out every single day. And like I said, we have some pretty interesting interviews coming up with some talking heads in the space. So stay tuned for that. Let's go ahead and check out this clip here.
Bitcoin has always been a leading indicator of where risk assets will go. So this is generally a positive skewed market for Bitcoin. I think specifically to Bitcoin, what's happening is where's the buying coming from? And so again, you have these publicly listed entities that are consistent buyers of Bitcoin. You have one of the most profitable companies in the world, Tether, that continues to use profits to buy Bitcoin. Tether is what the insurance business was for asset management. It's becoming one of the largest balance sheets out there. You have states, so New Hampshire, Arizona, potentially Oregon, who are now adopting digital asset holding frameworks that are going into law. You have sovereign states. I was in Dubai last week. The UAE, alongside many other nations, are buying Bitcoin as a reserve asset. So you have demand coming from there, and then where do you see supply consolidating?